Chest, there's not much time left to tell you how I regret, but I did my best. All demons have been blessed.
For a candidate, you have an option, only one choice. Sipping my drink, looking around, there's so much beauty as we can. And yet, self-confidence is a fragile concept that often fades away in the night. And there it comes, I don't want to guess, there's no place for you tonight. Want me to go, want me to go, cause you think I'm lying, cause you think I'm lying. No, open the door, cause now I cannot go hunting for stars, no, no.
Yeah, on the first morning, indeed.
Okay, great. I think we are able to start. Will we close the door? We can leave it open too. So welcome everyone, good morning. Thank you for being with us today and welcome to our session, the new social contract for empowered workforce. We will be discussing today a topic that we believe are crucial for all business today, the new relationship that's needed between companies and individuals to drive empowered workforce and successful business. We'll be looking at how should this new relationship look like, or what we call it, the social contract between employers and employees. And what does it take to bring this new contract to life? I'm joined by my three distinguished panelists today with me, so let me quickly introduce them. I have Martine Ferland with us, CEO of Mercer and Vice Chair of Marsh McLennan, Jolanda Grob, Group Chief People Officer at Zurich Insurance, and Ellyn, Chief Leadership and Human Resources Officer at Accenture. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
So if I may, please allow me to quickly set the scene for our discussions today. Businesses today are facing disruption in the employer-employee relationship due to change in workforce demographics as well as the rapid technology advancement. We all know that our workforce are very diverse today, which means that people's needs are very different. If I take age as an example, it is the first time that we have 5 generations in the workforce. People are living longer and as a result, also working longer. As it shows by the research report released by the World Economic Forum, we know that just over within the last 2 generations, the life expectancy has increased by 25 years. Wow. And this is from a WEF report on longevity economy. And this demographic change means that the majority of our workforce today have a caregiving responsibility while they also work. Technology is also rapidly driving changes to the way we work. Flexible working is more prevalent and preferred by the workforce, with 83% prefer a hybrid working model. And needless to say, we all know at this year's WEF agenda, there's a lot of topics about AI and AI-enabled technology, how it will disrupt the way we work and how we collaborate. With all that said, people remain to be the #1 priority for business and leaders. We're seeing a shift in the value creators for business, moving from tangible assets to intangible assets, highlighting the importance of financial, intellectual, but also human capital in driving business performance and business success. If we use as a proxy, take a look at the Fortune 500 and take a look at the assets on their balance sheet as a representation of what's driving the value creation. 15 years ago, over 80% of the assets come from physical assets, such as equipment and plants. This stat now is at 85% of the value is intangible assets, things like intellectual property, brand, etc., things that are more tied to and driven by people and talent. With technology playing such an important role for our business, it's also crucial to have the right talent. With AI advancing at such a rapid speed, we're also going to face a skill set shortage. And we all know we need the right combination of technology and talent to really, truly realize the full potential of the significant growth that business can achieve. So with the increased importance of people, it's vital for business and leaders to really better understand how should we engage with our workforce. What should this relationship in the future look like? It's no longer sufficient to just provide a job for our employees. Our leaders and organizations need to provide the workforce with a holistic support to really empower individuals and drive the business success. And this is what our discussion today will focus on. So with that, let me quickly start us off with our conversation. I'd like to first explore with the panelists, how should this new social contract between employees and employers look like? And what does it mean to be successful in this future of work? So Martine, if I can start with you. From experience working with your clients, do you see signs of elevated importance of people topic on the C-suite agenda? And also, what are the core challenges they are grappling with when it comes to employee engagement and workforce?
Well, thanks, Wendy, and welcome to the session. And I'm pleased to be here. It's most definitely on the C-suite agenda. I think you've given us many of the reasons why. We were, at Mercer, we're quite delighted to see Larry Fink coming as a big investor last year, his letter to CEO. First big trend coming in was the people agenda. You're looking at the type of year that we're planning to have in 24, that we're looking. It's a little bit of a year in between, not a year where we are afraid everything will be disastrous nor extraordinary. And you think of the power of people and unlocking the power that people have. It'll be the big differentiator. It has been in the last few years. It will be in the years coming. At the same time, as you said, There's so much dramatic changes coming through from technology combined with the after effect of the pandemic and the way that we have learned to work differently. And you combine all of that, and it absolutely has changed the social contract between employee and employers. That's what our clients are telling us. That's what we're seeing. So you've asked whether it's elevated. It's on every C-suite conversation that we're having, either from a transformation from job to skills, from a listening, because the expectation of employees have changed dramatically given all these circumstances. You think about Gen AI, ChatGPT, a word that has become the word of the year last year, whereby a year ago when we sat here in Davos, we didn't talk about it. So the rapidly evolving landscape there. We need to look at that, how that has changed the social contract, and you've asked how employers are adapting. I think one thing that we're seeing is the loyalty contract of past is gone, and we've moved into more of a lifestyle contract where employees really want a purpose, they want learning, they want to fulfill something else than the basics. Although we do see that in times when recession is lurking out, the basics come running, but always this difference in leadership. And I think it speaks to how leaders need to lead nowadays, much more listening, much more purposeful business direction, vision, bringing people along so that you can unlock their potential. So these are only just some elements that we have seen. It's a much more holistic contract that you have with employees now, from their well-being to their learning to their basics, the basic needs.
Thank you, Martine. And Ellyn, Accenture has recently been acknowledged as one of the world's best workplaces. So first, congratulations. Could you please share some insights into the distinctive ingredients that take to drive a human-centric organization, especially in this digital age?
Sure. Well, and thank you, Wendy, for having me. I'm delighted to be here. We think about it in a very simple way. We ask the question, will our people be net better off working at Accenture? And just for context, we have 740,000 people operating in 54 countries around the globe. And what we found, we did research on this and also worked with our own people to validate, is that there are 4 fundamental human needs. The first is ensuring our people feel healthy and well, physically, emotionally, and financially. The second, very similar to what Martine said, people want to come to work and have a purpose. And I'm not talking about like being connected to the purpose of the company necessarily, but feeling like when they wake up in the morning that they have a sense of purpose. Third, which is super important in this age of generative AI, is that people feel like they can trust their organization. The Edelman Trust Barometer came out, I think, yesterday, and it says that employers are still the most trusted entity, but that can be easily lost. So trust is the third. And the fourth is, do our people feel they have market relevant skills? Because having market relevant skills is their passport to financial security, job security, whether it's with Accenture or somewhere else. So those are the 4 fundamental needs. And what we found through our research is that if you can fire on all 4 of those things at the same time, you can unlock 2/3 of someone's potential at work. That's pretty extraordinary.
Thank you very much. Jolanda, I know certainly from personal experience, Zurich also has a lot of good experience and practice. Would you like to give some examples?
Yeah, so I think I can only confirm the themes that you've mentioned. I think what's very clear is it's very complex. You know, there are a lot of things to think about as an employer, and we've done some research on the future of employee benefits, and also there the themes emerged around kind of what is critical for a new social contract. It's around personalization, it's about empowerment, it's about care and well-being and purpose. So all the themes we already heard. The research also showed that de-risking and resilience has become really important to individuals, especially in current times of uncertainty and complexity, be it through what we heard, technology advancement, IA, but also information overload is a really critical topic. The information credibility crisis just been identified as the top short-term risk by the WEF Global Risk Report, and also macroeconomic trends. I mean, all of these developments have an impact on how employees feel, what their needs are, and as you said, they are looking more and more towards employers to actually support their work and life in a much more holistic way. And so at Zurich, on the one hand, we see that with our customers, how we support them in managing and mitigating risks. It's much more holistic by creating a resilient and inclusive workforce. So we also adapted our propositions to better support our customers. And at Zurich, we aim to be one of the most responsible and impactful organizations, and also with our purpose to support our customers and society becoming more resilient. That's certainly something we'll start with our own workforce, as you mentioned, Wendy. So for us, on the one hand, it's key that we create an environment where people feel they can belong, they have a purpose, but we also want to engage with our people in the longer term, as you mentioned, to help them be successful, be employable for the future. So we created our people sustainability ambition, that we really help people with up and reskilling, that we have a clear focus on internal first. So last year we could hire 71% of the vacancies with our internal people. So to really provide them with a lot of opportunity to have a career and grow with us at Zurich. So those are just a few of the things we do to support our people because they expect it of us.
Great. So let us dive a bit deeper into how we could bring this new social contract to life. I like to start because technology is mentioned a lot. So I like to start with the role of technology and data. So research shows that by 2030, the number of connected devices is expected to surpass world's population by 60 times. So how can we tap into the potential of technology and this massive amount of data that could be available to us to understand truly what employees care about? So with that, maybe we can start with one of the panelists from maybe Jolanda, since we were on the Zurich experience first. So from your experience and also working with customers, I know that we are also seeing how we can leverage technology to really deliver to our customers and also our employees, really the personalized and holistic support. So can you please share some examples?
So I think technology has always helped us listening to our employees. So first of all, I mean, everyone knows engagement surveys, but nowadays you link it much more with different touch points along the employee life cycle, be it from recruitment, be it from onboarding, and the true power lies in being able to combine those data points to create insights, to empower our leaders and people managers to actually take much, much better decisions. But as you said, I think technology doesn't only help us to listen, but it helps us in every aspect of the current employee life. I mean, we talked about up and reskilling that can only be done through technology. We have a lot of training internally available. We have platforms where people can look at their own skills and what gaps they have, and then that links to training via LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, but also our own programs that we develop. And there are many different opportunities. And as you mentioned, Wendy, I think it's also important for us to collaborate outside of our organization, to use technology there. So while we have employee benefits platforms, we also make them available to our customers through kind of a benefits hub where all the different offerings come together so that for an employee, for their experience, it's much easier to have one-stop shop where they can find everything. And the power of data there for us lies in being able to revise our proposition and offer more to better understand what really works for employees and get their feedback on a continuous basis.
Great. Thank you. And Ellyn, I know Accenture also has some success and good stories from leveraging data and really how to bring data together to really empower workforce. Would you please share some examples?
Sure. And this is where my nickname, my affectionate nickname, I'm known as a geek with a heart inside of Accenture because I do like data. But I think, if I may be a geek for a moment, it's super important as more and more data becomes available to employers and just in the world more generally, that you have your digital core in order, and that you, as a leader, you really understand your digital core, how it works, what's in it, so that you can unlock the full potential of all that data. So I'll just start there because I think that's table stakes. And I'll just give one example, which is similar to yours about skilling. What we've been able to do now to really ensure we're hitting on that final fundamental need, which is our people feel like they have market relevant skills. Because we operate our company in the cloud, we've been able to connect our sales pipeline all the way in stage 0 of our sales pipeline, all the way through to our scheduling systems. And in our company, our people work in project teams, and those teams get assembled and disassembled every single day, thousands of times a day. And so our people have complete transparency into what are the opportunities coming down the pike, sometimes 6 months in advance, so that they can express their aspirations and prepare themselves to be ready for new opportunities in our client pipeline. So without data, without being able to see into Salesforce, into our sales pipeline, all the way through to our skills database, which is the Workday Skills Cloud, through to our own scheduling systems and connecting all those together, we would never be able to give that opportunity to our people with full transparency, which truly, I believe in what they tell us, creates trust. And trust is really the currency in the digital age.
Thank you very much. So we are hearing a lot about data, and technology and data can certainly be an enabler. However, I think there's also a careful balance on what and how we can use this data. So from research, we do know that there is an openness for employees to share personal data if it brings benefit to themselves. Yeah. According to research, over 90% of the workers are open to the collection of data if it improves their performance or their well-being, or provides some other personal benefit to themselves. But also the success of this really requires integration from all stakeholders and providers. So this creates the opportunity for broader collaboration across industry, a digital integration. So Martine, maybe you can share Mercer's experience in how to work with providers and stakeholders in the collaboration side.
Yeah, definitely technology has given us an edge in terms of connecting data. We often see that employers have humongous amount of data around their population, but it's used very little. So everything we can do to help get the insight from this data, the patterns of usage of benefits, for example, you talked about learnings, and also in your 4 principles, Ellyn, you were talking about, there's another element which is sense of belonging, sense of personal purpose and connectivity. We see that all the pressure in the world today, whether it's inflation on the cost of living, whether it's just broad anxiety on the state of the world, the coming of a generative AI in the workplace and how this will impact jobs. There's a lot of hot and cold thinking on that one. It's creating quite a lot of mental health pressure, wellness. We know that the new generation in the workplace are much more open to discussing this, and therefore utilizing technology patterns information that you have across different databases, whether it's with Zurich or with the employer or with us as the broker, for example. You can connect all this data and help understand the patterns, understand what employers are using or not using in the benefit set that you're offering, and help them really along the way of feeling more safe and feeling more welcomed in the organization. I find that I've been in this industry for more years than I care to count, and I think that we today have the access that technology gives us helps us customize to every employee, which was something that was so extravagantly expensive 20 years ago, is now done in such an easier way with technology. So we need to, as employers, as providers of benefits and technology, we need to get together to make sure that for employers, we help them access this data and power this data to good outcome for their population.
Thank you, Martine. We spoke quite a bit about what the social contract is about and how do we implement the social contract. But as Peter Drucker famously said, in the time of the greatest danger in the time of turbulence is not the turbulence itself, but to act with yesterday's logic. So I'd like to explore the paradigm or the mindset shift that's required to really bring this new social contract to life. So how does this change in the employer-employee relationship really change the role of leaders and organization? Ellyn, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and I'll take us back to 2014, believe it or not, a decade ago. We had a different CEO at the time, and he was quite an extraordinary man. He passed away in post, sadly. But what he said to me when I took this role is that we wanted to be the most truly human company. And he had a lot of foresight. He was quite, I think, forward-thinking, because what he meant by that is he really did 10 years ago want to help people be successful professionally and personally. And a lot of us are just talking about that now, a decade later, but we started laying the groundwork for that over a decade ago. And at its most simple, basic, you have to match what you say with what you do. And myself and a colleague of mine, Paul Doherty, our Chief Technology and Innovation Officer, co-authored a piece of research that's being launched today that draws out some of these paradoxes between what people are feeling and what companies are actually prepared to do around technologies. For example, almost 2/3 of workers are concerned about losing their jobs with generative AI, as well as they are concerned about the mental health impacts that generative AI will cause, even though 95% of employees see the potential that generative AI will bring to help them with their work. I mean, those are two quite stark paradoxes. And I think employees have a reason to be concerned about their mental health and job loss, because only 5% of companies, through our research, are actually investing in their people to prepare them to be ready for this age of generative AI. And so those, when I think about matching what you say with what you do, that's really where it comes together. And I think that's at the very basic level where we all should start.
Great. Any thoughts on Martine and Jolanda you'd like to share?
Yeah, let me be quite blunt here. I think the ways of, except for that man in 2014, the ways of
his name.
come in and control, and I as a leader have all the answers, is totally gone. And we need to be careful that we don't use yesterday's logic or yesterday's, the way that it worked to impact today, because as we said at the very beginning, the power of people, their creativity, when they put their heart in it, it makes such a huge difference in outcomes for everyone around, the clients and the colleagues, and the retention of good colleagues, etc. It's kind of it's a virtuous circle. And you need leaders who listen. You need leaders who adapt quickly, who know where they're going and share their vision for the collective, the why we wake up in the morning. And every why is different, so you alluded to that. Find your own why within the collective one, connect to that, and empower people to do their best, to bring their best self, to bring their best work. It was interesting because earlier in 2023, I had the opportunity to come across General McChrystal, who's an American general, retired now. And even in the military, to adapt to the new ways of the war, unfortunately and sadly, they had to really disconnect from this command and control approach, to be hubbing, to be connecting more, to be more agile in the way that they work, to be really agreeing an outcome, a vision. And that's how I see leadership nowadays. You paint a picture of where you want to go, and then you assemble teams that have the different skills, and you let them, their power, their creativity, their human potential come together and create the great outcome. You don't tell them how to do it. You just tell them where you want to go, or you agree with them where you want to go by listening as well to them. So this whole new dynamic in terms of how to lead and not follow yesterday's approaches, I do believe is absolutely critical to be successful. Yeah, you don't have to, but I think there's a little bit of a risk if you don't adapt.
Agreed.
And I think it's also in line with employees' expectations. I think leaders really need to show up very differently than in the past. I mean, people expect leaders to be authentic, to show empathy, to truly care. If you don't live up to that, you will have an issue with your employee engagement, with retaining your people. And also, I think leaders themselves need to be role models. If we expect and we know that jobs are changing, new technology is shifting the way we work, as a leader, you need to demonstrate adaptability. You also need to, you don't need to be totally tech savvy, but I think you need to understand, what the impact of technology will be on work, how we can benefit from that, what the opportunity of technology is. And if you don't role model that for your people, how can you continue to be credible? And also, I think leaders have a duty to help shape a work environment where employees truly feel they can bring their full self to work, they can actually grow. A lot of that is orchestrated by the leaders. And so they're truly role models. They need to support employees in that journey. And if they don't, then this will have an impact on your organization. So I think it's non-negotiable that leaders have to adapt.
Great. We'd like to also hear from the audience, so please start thinking about your questions. After maybe one more question from my side, we'll open it up to hear your thoughts as well. So the word purpose and trust was mentioned a lot already today on the panel. And purpose and value are emerging as the leading engagement factor for employees, as we know. Research has shown that contributing to society and meaningful work are the top two priorities for employees, with 70% of the employees really define the purpose also through work. Employers are emerging as the #1 trusted institution, as Ellyn already pointed out. This was noted in the 2023 Alderman Trust Barometer, and this year the index even went up higher, so it's really significant. So how do we really cultivate this purpose-driven culture and human-centric culture, really living up to the trust that the employees place in the organization, while being in a return and shareholder-driven business environment? So how do we balance the two? I'd like to ask the panelists to share some insight on this.
So I think nowadays it's really critical that as an organization, you actually have different stakeholders. It's not just the shareholders, it's your customers, it's your business partners, it's your people, but it's also how you give something back to society and how you support everything to do with our planet. And as you said, we have 5 generations in the workplace, and not only, but especially the younger generations, they really place a great importance on having a social and a positive impact on the environment. And the more, obviously, as an employer, you also stand for that, the more you will be able to attract and retain those employees and also have great engagement. And we also know from a lot of studies that there is a direct correlation between engagement and positive business success. So the more we can do in that regard, I think the more we have this purpose in work. And you talked about kind of the headlines out there that a lot of the jobs will be lost or new jobs will be created where we don't even know titles today. And this creates insecurity for people. They're not sure about what that means for them. And this also leads to anxiety, and we know if you're fearful, it's hard to learn. But at the same time, people know they really have to adapt. And so employers have a critical role to play to prepare people for what's relevant today, but also tomorrow. And I think part of that will then also lead to, or is part of that new social contract, that you help your people be employable for the long term. And as you mentioned as well, right, it can be with your own organization, but also with other organizations.
Yeah. I think one thing that connects all that we've been talking about this morning is the intensity of communications between employee and employer, between leaders and their teams. If you think about all that we have talked about, if you do this behind the curtain or a little bit in the silo, you're probably missing the value that you're bringing is not being delivered. You're not getting the ROI on it. And there's so many different ways to communicate these days, so many different channels that you can use. But to communicate in a consistent and helpful way, you also have to be so clear about your values and your vision. I was discussing just before the session started this morning the expectation that is placed on leaders and employers to have a point of view, take a stand on many of the issues that are hitting our world these days. And if your values are not completely clear, you'll lose your way. And this authentic leadership that we were talking about, if it's not truly thought through in terms of connecting to your strategy, to your purpose, to the credibility that you have as a business, if it's not really well aligned, you'll be cut out quite quickly. You employ 740,000 people?
Yeah.
I'm sure they all have the same opinion on every topic. So that's why I think having a true north in terms of your values is important. When you communicate a lot, you also have to be very consistent about those values.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ellyn, any thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I go back to, the hyper-personalization and making sure that our people not only understand the work that they're doing, but why they're doing it for our clients, whether they're working for a life sciences company, even if they're putting in a new financial system, if that mission of that company is to help cure cancer, our people feel connected to that mission. And I think that our jobs as leaders is to really make sure that people understand why they're doing what they're doing, and that they feel this sense of purpose when they get up and come to work every day. And I think it's quite a privilege to lead people in that way, and to really try to inspire people not manage people, but inspire people to achieve things they never thought were possible. I'm someone who I never dreamt in my wildest dreams that I would be in a job like I am in today, but I was inspired by so many mentors and leaders. And I think that even though those might be old lessons but they endure because they're human. They're about being connected, human to human, and I think that's what's most important.
Great. So we have a mic around, so please raise your hand, and if you have a question, introduce yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Eduardo de la Mayora. I'm the CEO and founder of Betterfly. We're a purpose-driven engagement platform that integrates insurance, well-being, and purpose. So my question was around purpose and well-being. We operate a pretty comprehensive platform in Latin America, and we've seen a very deep connection between purpose and employee well-being. So if you could comment around that connection, if you've seen something in that line.
Martine, you like to start first?
Yes, for sure. I think to be clear we talked about being clear on the vision, knowing where you're going. I think people need that sense of purpose, need that sense of connection. Yeah. Why am I here? It's this essence of life. I think I'd be very curious to see your experience of it, but to see yourself, and we all have slightly different purposes and objectives and goals in life. And to see that you can actually be fulfilled by the work that you're doing within the collective is important. I think it's a little bit of a fallacy to think that there's one unique purpose across one company and everybody needs to subscribe in it. But to me, it's this wellness, this sense of comfort of being included, of making a difference, is when you can see yourself and the contribution that you make to the whole, that the team is bringing to the world. So I'd be very interested in your experience on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually really like to hear the connection between purpose and well-being, because that's not something that I've heard our people say before. The importance of more holistic well-being, like I said earlier, the physical, emotional, and financial well-being has become very clear as a need for all of our people, and as is having this sense of purpose, but the connection between them, they've never talked to us about. So I would really be interested to hear what your platform is all about.
Hi, I really want to thank all of you for this great conversation here. I'm Catherine Stickney. I'm the CEO of Perita. It's a workforce analytics platform, and I was particularly interested, Martine, you mentioned that you have a lot of employee data, but it's rarely used. So I'm curious why that is, so it can help inform what I do.
Yeah. Well, the why, I don't know. We try to work with clients to make them, one, aware of all the data. I think one of you talked about the fact that I think, Ellyn, you talked about being organized around your data. Part of it is people have data, but it's not easily accessible. So despite all the talk that we've had about data is the new gold and digital workings and everything, I think still it's a bit elusive that the data is too distributed. So you need to work on your systems and work on accessing it. Also, there's a little bit of how do you drive insight out of the data? It's quite easy to get data that means not much because you can't influence it, you can't impact it. So to be able to assemble the data and get the insight that you can really use to affect change is part of the journey as well. I think there's a lot of people who realize they have it, but it's operationally, they don't access it as easily as they should or would or want. So it's part of the answer.
And I agree. I think the so what is truly important, right? I mean, a lot of data can also be very overwhelming that you look at it, but if you don't get the essence out and connect upon it, or if you can't use the data ultimately to predict something, then you stop looking at it at one point because you feel it's just practice too much and you can't really act on it.
Gentleman, oh, sorry, over there.
Thank you. I want to compliment you on an excellent panel. I'm David Kochman. I lead corporate affairs for Henry Schein. We're a large healthcare company. So thinking back even 20, 30 years, the encouragement to young employees to get ahead is work hard, stay at the office longer, put in more. Now you're hearing a lot about act your wage. You know, you should wait for the company to really pay you to go ahead. So if you're trying to encourage and inspire a young employee to get ahead, to differentiate themselves, what would be your advice to that employee, and how would you, I guess, what would you recommend to a company to help encourage young employees to step out more without kind of violating that notion of we're asking you to do work for free?
Great question. Ellyn, would you?
Yeah, I'll just say something that I say all the time to our newly hired people from universities, and that is one, we're a Gallup strength company, so everyone in Accenture knows what their strengths are. So I encourage people to work at the intersection of their strengths, what they're great at and what they love to do, because if you can get people to do that, that's when real magic happens. And we really see people flourish when you can get that connection to happen. So I have not heard that expression before. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I admit it. I am not for a variety of reasons. But yeah, I am maybe going to ask my daughter about that.
And maybe to add to that, I think an advice for young people, for me, is always to try out different things. Because I think, to your point, sometimes you don't really know your strengths that well in the beginning, and the more you can see and the more you can test out, the better you will understand yourself, and the more you can actually then work towards where the magic truly happens. And I think it's a missed opportunity in the beginning if you don't try many different things.
Martine, anything you'd like to share?
Very similarly, I would say be curious, network, understand the place, and learn. Make it different.
Yeah.
Try to make it better than you took it, and the fulfillment that come with it. I would say kind of trust me for a second here and try it. But it's interesting because I think we need to listen very hard to that new generation that come in, and for them loyalty it's not a thing. There's a little bit of in there to learn, to grow, to learn their skills. You talked about that, and that's what I hear from the younger generation. They can be transient, and that's where, when I was saying the yesterday's approach, that's where if that brings your back up as an older person, you're getting it wrong. And veering onto the curiosity, the learning is, I think, the way of the future.
If I can just add something, because we haven't really talked about this today, and now that you bring up loyalty, I agree that people are less and less loyal to a company. But I think what I've seen, especially, over the last few years, is that people are very loyal to each other. And one of the ways that I see that come to life is through our employee resource groups. And we have a lot of them. We have what I think many companies would call the traditional ones. But we also have, for example, our interfaith ERG that also has religious ERGs underneath it has become hugely important in this day and age, especially with the war happening between Israel and Gaza, and I think that what I'm seeing is that our people are very loyal to each other, and I think that that's something also that talks about this importance of human connection in the new social contract. The more the world becomes digital, the more human connection is going to be essential.
Yes. And I'd like to add, technology also makes that connection easier in a sense, especially in large organizations such as Accenture. Technology also adds beyond the traditional face-to-face employer resource group. Now you can do it online with different form, different time. This power of connection is really, truly valuable for organization. The gentleman in the front, question?
Thank you very much. Good morning and congratulations on an excellent panel this morning. My name is René Aguilar. I'm VP for Sustainability and Corporate Affairs with a copper mining company based out in Chile. Things in this topic are evolving so fast. I mean, you were mentioning 10 years ago the conversation was completely different. Now we are hearing, as you were saying, moving from loyalty contract to lifestyle contracts, you know, the sense of purpose in the organizations. But at the same time, Ellyn, you were saying that one of the 4 critical aspects that you were mentioning was that people need to feel that they've got relevant skills for the market.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I've been hearing a lot about generative AI. So how do you go about the anxiety that people feel because of that? Because in reality, nobody has certainty on how deep it's going to get. So how do you manage that certainty that people need to perform well?
Well, I think, you know, what we're seeing both with our clients, we've done 700 projects with our clients in generative AI, and we're doing our own workforce transformation at scale around generative AI. And one of the things that I think really helps people is if you can bring transparency to what is happening. So for example, an example we have with a consumer goods organization company, in their sales organization, they've created a generative AI sales bot to help their salespeople. And so what's happened is we've built a tool that shows people what the jobs are today and what the generative AI is going to do. So what is the sales coach going to do to help people? What are the jobs for tomorrow, and what skills are those jobs going to have? And when you can bring that level of transparency to people, people want to work with generative AI. Like I said, our research says 95% of people want to. But if you can bring that transparency to your people, then they can take action. They can start to learn these new skills. You can, you know, someone talked about Coursera and LinkedIn Learning, and there's tons of learning opportunities for people. But I would say this one thing that I think we as leaders in this room really need to take note of is this technology is different from any other technology that we've experienced in the past, because it's going to touch every part of the enterprise. And so our jobs as leaders is to really learn the technology, really understand the technology, so that you can reinvent work, reshape the workforce, and prepare your workers for this new digital age.
And for us, it was really critical to create a mindset shift that technology is not seen as a threat, but actually as a huge opportunity. And you talked about fear, and so for us, the first step was really to kind of upskill our people digitally. You know, you mentioned Coursera, LinkedIn, but we also created our own digital skills program so that our people really got an understanding of what the different technologies out there actually will do, but also in a positive sense. And then I think it goes back to the trust we discussed. I think we see, I mean, there is a demographic shift happening, so we know the baby boomer generation is retiring soon, and we won't have enough workers actually to do all the jobs. So we need technology to be successful, but I think the key will be how to do this hand in hand. And the more employees can trust us that we actually will take away the repetitive work, you know, kind of that they can actually focus much more on what differentiates us as an organization, which is our people, and so to support them to work with the technology to enable them to do much better of a job than they did before.
And that's it's also very worth noting that we talked about the Elderman Trust report. It's in the same report when it comes to technology and innovation. Organizations are also placed as number one, what people trust to really deliver the innovation. So I think it's also a duty of organizations to really think about how to upskill, reskill, and bring this to the work.
There's a real nuance in that this year, though, because I read the report yesterday when it came out. CEOs are less trusted than chief technology officers, even though companies are the most trusted entity. It's now shifted to chief technology officers. What does that mean for us as leaders? We really need to understand responsible AI. We need to really understand how to use this technology responsibly, that it's free from bias, that there's transparency into how the data is being utilized, how an individual's data is being utilized. And so I think that's something also that we really need to take note of in this new social contract, which is to only 2% of companies have a responsible AI framework, by the way. So there's lots of opportunity to hurry up and be a leader in this area. But I truly believe that it's going to be one of the foundational things to ensure that you're bringing your workers along with trust.
I think there's a few points in addition to the good conversation here. One, you need to know the beast. So if you try to shy away from it, you'll be caught on the back foot. I think if you adapt it, you adapt to it, you get to learn it. There are dangers, there are risks, of course, but there are, I think, more risk by ignoring it or putting it on the side. So there's one. The second is probably it's the one technology in all of those many years that we all understand what it does. We don't necessarily understand how it does it. It's not my job, but we all know how to use it. Like we see the application. I remember trying my hardest to understand blockchain, and still to today, I'm just going like this. But this, we had a huge survey with Oliver Wyman at Mercer, and we interviewed 26,000 people in 16 countries at a survey of 200,000 people. 50% of the respondents use it at least once a week. So it's something that's quite easy to understand and easy to use. So I think the second thing here is know the beast, but also make it available to all your employees. At Mercer, we've worked to create a internal ChatGPT type. We call it it's Marsh McLennan, so we call it Len AI. But it means that we keep our data private, but we can access the outside and bring it in, but our data doesn't go out. And we can utilize Len AI to do our work. So make it available to everyone is one way to assuage those fears that people might have. And then, to my point earlier, the communication, and you've all talked about that, being transparent, making it available, showing how it can be used, how it can enhance your day-to-day life. There's a statistic that I thought was interesting, that to build a car you need the same number of human beings to build a car today than you did in 1950. Just the work that these humans do is very different than the work they did in 1950. So I think it's the way to see this. Plus you combine it to what you were saying earlier around, it is a fact that, demography is destiny. We have less and less people to do the work in many, many of our countries. And therefore the skill set, the talent pool shrinking, that's another angle that we need to talk about. And lastly, I would say, you said copper mines, and I think we are sometimes very guilty. We all work in very white-collar-ish type of companies, but I think we also have to bring along the people who work on the front line, that have physical work. They're used to having their work very, very much transformed through technology over the years. And we need to make sure that we bring them along as well. So I'll finish on that point. Thank you for your question.
And maybe just a very little example on that, because I think making technology available is one thing, but then what you also said is helping people how to use it. And we actually did it from employees for employees. So we had sharing set, for us everything is with a said session, so where really teams demonstrated what they did with new technology in a way that other teams could really look at it and leverage and see. Sometimes technology seems like, oh, I need a degree to be able to work with this, and this was a very easy way to demonstrate we can all do it, or you have then the people in your organization you can turn to and say, colleagues, can you help me to figure this out? So I think to also share experiences amongst employees is really critical on this journey.
Great. I think we may have time for one last question.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ellyn. I'm a fellow with the World Economic Forum, working very closely with Zurich, actually, on the Longevity Economy Initiative. I'm also a consultant with Mercer and a member of the governing bodies of the Global Shaper community, of which Ellyn is a board member. So it's particularly inspiring for me as a young woman, seeing a panel of all female leaders talking about this topic. My question is, for a number of the different answers that you've given today, you've talked a lot about empathy, about leading with heart, authentic leadership, and you've mentioned about the need for a paradigm shift in the way that we perceive leadership in the world. I'm curious, in spaces where talking about empathy and talking about active listening and collective leadership is less common, how do you see yourselves as facilitators or others as facilitators in bringing that conversation to those spaces to really encourage that deeper discussion about what does it mean to be an authentic leader in today's environment? Thank you.
Well, I'll just say when Julie Sweet became our CEO, she wrote her leadership essentials, and I'll just call out two. One of them is care deeply for our people, and very few companies have a leadership essential or a leadership principle where you just say, we will care deeply for our people. And the other one is to lead with courage and humility, so that we're always learning. I think the combination of humility and caring really transcends, in our company, transcends all the cultures that exist in our organization, all of the demographic diversity that we have, and it just really helps us really understand how we're expected to show up. And I think when you provide that kind of clarity to people and you demonstrate that as leaders, then that's the way the world becomes pretty quickly. Oh.
And probably adding to that, I think as CPO or CHRO, obviously we have a lot of opportunities to influence these things, but I think for me the most powerful is truly role modeling it yourself. I mean, I think we saw it clearly through the pandemic. I mean, everyone, was in a very new situation. Everyone had family issues probably to deal with alongside work. And the more you opened up that also you don't have all the answers right now, I think the more people felt they could also open up and talk about, issues they have. And so I truly believe role modeling as leaders is really critical to see the behavior you actually want to see in the organization.
I think your two points are illustrating how, in my view, the C-suite, starting with the CEO, they're the champion of culture.
Yeah.
And if it's not, sorry for you two, but it's HR, the people unit can help us with all kinds of means in deploying, but if it's obvious that the business leaders in the organization don't walk the talk, to your point about role modeling, then it won't happen. Yep. It has to be from the C-suite, the culture, the way to operate has to be super clear from that level, and then demonstrated through the actions that are being taken in the organization every day.
So thank you all for a very lively discussion. I think in the interest of time, I will close with a few words. I jotted down some of the key themes. I think we can all agree that the relationship between employees and employers are being disrupted, and this needs the new social contract. And with employer emerged as the most trusted institution, and very in line with WEF's this year's theme about rebuilding trust, I think organizations not only have the opportunity, but also the responsibility to really empower a more engaged and productive workforce, while also driving positive societal impact. So to really truly put people as the top priority, we need a human-centric organization. We need organizations to really provide the holistic support to help the workforce and guide the workforce to really thrive. So we want to end with the theme on the screen today, which is "And together, let's shape a brighter future of work." So with that, thank you very much for joining us today, and please join me to thank my panelists.
With a song, speak up. All around the seven seas, looking for a piece of missing thing on this boardwalk empire. Well, I am here, I'll try to stand tall. Stepping on those fences, I might. Blinding hearts, sleeping pills, feeding minds. To the machine, make some noise. They might hear, make some noise. Have no fear, no fear. Speak up. First a sound, then the storm. Things are changing. Things are changing. Things are changing.